Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video, I want to talk to you about the new Lightcone. This is Lingsha Signature Lightcone that has officially been released on HoYo Lab as well, so we can officially talk about it. Now, in this video, I want to talk to you about whether it's a good investment, whether you should actually pull for it, can it be used for other characters, and my overall review of the Lightcones. At the same time, I want to dive deeper into the alternatives for Lingsha if you don't plan to pull for this one, so you can weigh whether you really do want to get it, whether it's really a huge necessity. But first things first, of course, let's go and start the things off with a very quick overall view summary of Lingsha's, which Lightcone is better for her. The Lightcone's pool for Lingsha is split generally into two different categories. The first is going to be a damage and heal category where you are focusing on maximizing as much break effect as you can because she has great split scaling. Break effect gives her not only attack and outgoing healing, so you get more damage. At the same time, you also get a lot of healing, plus you also get a break effect if you needed to use it to break squishy monsters and stuff like that as well. On top of that, you also have the other section of Lightcones, which is the utility Lightcones, which is either energy funneling to your team, helping her move more often and giving more skill points and whatever not. That is under the utility side of things. Her signature over here, Send Alone Stays True, is great, is quite balanced, is good for both categories, but let's talk into it and talk about some alternatives between the both of them. So let's look at the Send Alone Stays True first. This gives you a very good 529 base attack, decent amount of HP as well, and defense stats. One important thing to note is attack matters to this character because she scales off attack. Out of all of the Lightcones in the game for abundance, this is the second highest attack, just behind Luota's signature, which gives him 580 plus. Not too sure why Luota needed so much more massive, but the other abundance Lightcones are actually quite far behind. The next in line, the third place is 470 something, so this is quite significant, 10% higher than the third best. That is quite high in terms of base attack. For the effects over here, increases Whereas break effect by 60%. The threshold that Lingsha needs to hit is 200% to get the maximum value of attack bonuses as well as outgoing healing bonuses. And you want to actually make use of this split scaling that she has because it's just so much more efficient. You get the break effect stats, you convert it to damage and healing, not only just specifically focus on healing, because she also does quite a lot of damage on the side as well. Her ult does damage, the rabbit that she summons also does damage, Fu Yuan, and all that stuff too. Other than that, what else is good about this one? It also gives you a nice amount of 10% damage increase for your entire team when the enemies are inflicted by this state. And if you have more than 150% break effect, you get an additional 8% damage as well. So total 18% damage increase, which is nice. It's great for utility for the second part. The first part focuses a bit more on her damage since it buffs her attack, it buffs her outgoing healing, and the base attack is also very high. This is an excellent, well-balanced Lightcone overall for Lingsha. But then the question is, do you need it? Are there alternatives? Can we work with anything else? And for that, of course, we need to move over into the game engine and we'll talk about it first. Let's talk about the first category first, shall we? We'll talk about the one that is damage as well as healing aspect, rather focusing on the kit, which is more break effect focused. And then we will talk about utility in a bit. The closest competitor, I would say, is What Is Real, because this is a free-to-play Lightcone and you can get it at Super in position 5. You might have 100 less attack, which means you lose out in the damage front, but you get a lot of it back in break effect over here. So 48% break effect already, which helps you hit your 200% threshold. And yeah, this is okay-ish, I guess. A little bit of healing, not really going to be very critical. So what exactly do you lose out? This is totally free, so $0 spent. All you just need to do is your weekly bosses and whatnot. Once you get enough, you can pull enough of these. What do you lose? You lose out on 100 attack, 100 base attack, you lose out on 12% break effect, and you lose out on 18% damage bonus for potentially saving you $200. Personally, for me, I'll be really honest, I think that What Is Real is definitely a much more attractive option. I'd rather have that $200 or that guarantee saved up for another character, but that's just my opinion. Let's move on to the third best for this category. For damage and heal third best, probably it will be Time Waits for No One, just because of the decent amount of base attack. No other Lightcone for abundance gives you that break effect, and I don't want to talk about other signatures for example Luota and Ho and stuff like that. I'll specifically talk about one that's more accessible to most people, but Luota's one definitely is way better because it has way higher base attack for what we are going to mention here. But Time Waits for No One is third best in terms of attack scaling. It's the third highest base attack in the Abundance Lightcone section. And I mean, it gives you decent amount of outgoing healing, HP, which doesn't really do too much for her damage and healing. But because of its high attack, and as well as you can get this a little bit of damage extra, so I guess it's contributing a little bit much. But I would say if you have this, you can slap it on as like mainly just used as a stat stick for her. What is real is probably like a super efficient alternative, right? Because you can get a lot of stats for a much cheaper price. That is for the damage and healing section. The real reason why it's very important to know why it's like damage slash healing is because her scaling with break effect is both for attack and outgoing healing. Light cones that offer outgoing healing, this like makes it so that light cones that offer outgoing healing is much less attractive unless they offer like some sort of utility with it. So you will see it in our recommendations here as well in the utility sections. Out of all of them, let's just touch on a few that is like super critical, and then we'll go down the list of those that are not as critical. The free-to-play one, Quid Pro Quo, is quite attractive. This one gives you a decent amount of attack, but we are looking mainly in terms of utility here, and this gives you a great 16 energy for a random chosen ally if they have less than 50% energy as well. Great battery funneler you can funnel to your team, so some sort of utility, especially if you don't really require that break effect stat, you feel like you don't really need her to do too much damage, you think that her healing is enough in your comms, maybe you're fighting an easier floor, bosses not hitting so hard. Quid Pro Quo, I think, is a very decent alternative as well, especially if you're looking to funnel it. So versus what is real, this one focuses more on damage and heal. Quid Pro Quo is more like utility if you need to funnel the energy to someone else. I think this is really fine. The other alternative that a lot of people will talk about, of course, is multiplication. This is a 3-star gear. So unlike a lot of other characters who use this and are super squishy and they might get one-shotted, because Lingsha is a 5-star character, she is able to use this much better and not like get one-shotted halfway if you're auto-battling or anything. So that's a nice plus to have. At the same time, when you at basic attack, her action advanced by 20%. Of course, this is a 3-star, so you can easily get this at super in position 5, unless you're doing like a no-pool account or something like that. Advance forward by 20% is very strong. It helps you basically increase her rotations. What that means is you give more skill points to the rest of your team, you get more energy on the character, which in turn leads to more damage on the enemies, more breaking on the enemies, as well as applying that debuff that she has on the enemies, and a little bit of like healing, sustaining the rest of the team too. So really great. I think multiplication is like super solid, as we already know by now. So great options for utility that we have. Her signature, of course, is like really good, as we mentioned, because of the damage increase that it gets. But these are more like utility, skill points, energy, which damage is like not, it doesn't offer, the signature doesn't offer. So you have great alternatives so far. Two other ones that I think are maybe not as helpful but are still worth mentioning. One, of course, is post-op conversation. Depending on whether you have it at S1 or S5, you get good amounts of energy regen to help with her up times, especially if you feel that you don't really need to complete her rotations, or you want to like help her complete her rotations a little bit better rather than having that break effect. This is great. One thing that I want to point out is energy regen on this particular unit, Lingsha, is not as critical as like some other characters. For example, like Runmei, because Runmei is damage buff, right? You want that to have uptime all the time. Whereas Lingsha is like just a little bit of debuff on the enemy, which is not like super critical as well. It's nice to have, but not essential in a sense. So energy regen, rotations, not super critical. I would say this is a plus. I wouldn't be focusing on it. Outgoing healing over here when they use their ultimate, this is nice, but as we mentioned, break effect is a much better scaling since attack skills are healing, outgoing healing skills are healing. So break effect is a much better stat to have, but this is still pretty decent. So I'll put it like as the third of the other light cones, other than of course her signature. And last but not least, I think probably worth mentioning is Shed Feeling. This is probably like one of the lowest ones I'll rate. One thing is, again, outgoing healing is not super critical, and she doesn't really use her skill too much, but still this offers you decent amount of utility for the rest of the team because it's still some energy, not a lot, but some. I would much rather prefer like the free-to-play Quid Pro Quo, because this is like quite massive amounts, especially if you are like more or less guaranteed. As long as you start your turn, you don't have to like use a skill or anything. I think this is like way better, Quid Pro Quo. But those are some options in terms of the light cones. Let me sum up, shall we? In terms of light cones for Lingsha, I think in terms of they're split into two, damage and healing slot, the best in slot is definitely her signature light cone. That is probably going to be the best in terms of overall utility for the damage because of the high stats that he has, the amount of damage buffing that he has, and the break effect scaling. Alternatively, second place in terms of like value is What Is Real. What Is Real is offers you a lot. You only lose out 12% break effect, 100% attack, as well as the 18% damage buff that you get, which is really good. You save $200. I would actually say like this is like super high in value. But third place, probably I would say is like Time Waits for No One. This is already really strong because of the high base attack that you get for what we mentioned. If you have the signature, Echoes of Coffin is like worth mentioning because of his massive, top, best-in-class attack stat, but that's a bit more niche for people who have it. I won't elaborate more because majority of people probably don't have a spare one lying around. Second part, to sum up, is the utility side of things. Of course, her signature is going to be great for damage buffing because it gives you a lot of the 18% damage increase, which is very significant for utility. Other than that, if you're looking and in parallel, so they are not like one ahead of the other, one that is very interesting is talking about multiplication, which gives you a lot of action advancing. This is free to play, so a lot more skill points, energy, and as well as healing damage for the rest of the team too. Quid Pro Quo is really strong, giving you a lot of energy to someone, so if you need to funnel into a damage dealer who really likes to out a lot, this is really strong as well. Also free to play, you can have it at S5. Other than that, you have probably at the last place for the utility section is like post-op conversation, which gives you good amounts of energy regen, as well as shared feeling, which gives you decent amounts of energy, like 2 energy if you use skill, but it's probably like the lowest of the priority. And that is my opinions on the light cones in general for Lingsha. Okay, now we move on to the next part. Because investment value is not just talking about the character itself, right? We also need to look beyond that, and we need to look at the other abundance characters in the game. And this really is talking about how useful this light cone that we have over here, which is this Send Alone Stays True. How good is this actually used on the other characters in the game? And in this section here is mainly focusing on who else can use this. Gallagher is probably like the first option that most people think about, right? Because he can use break effect stat. It's great for him if he's not using like multiplication or anything. You aren't running him, you just want a bit more stats. Maybe you're auto battling with him. You want that higher HP pool to not die by using like a 3-star gear. I think it's a pretty good alternative for him too, as well. Other than that, Lorta is kind of the only other one who is able to use like the debuff on him. Unfortunately, he doesn't care too much about the break effect. He doesn't care about break effect almost at all, but it still gives him that 10% debuff if you want to put it on someone. He's the only guy that does damage in his ultimate other than Gallagher, so he's probably the only one else that can use it. And let's just like sum up, right? Let's do an overall rating of this gear, and I'll give you like an honest opinion as well. In my opinion, for this light cone, Send Alone Stays True, it's really convenience light cone. You get a lot of stats that you need, a lot of utility without having to worry too much about builds, farming like the sub stats and getting all of it. To me, it feels more of a luxury than a must. There are great alternatives that exist at free-to-play levels in both utility as well as damage and healing. Although none is like as universal, it can do a bit of everything, but still, not many other people can use this light cone, making it like super niche. To be honest, I would not pull on this, and I will save the signature for a future character that would prefer their signature a bit more and like more useful. When that day comes, I'll let you know, don't worry. And if you appreciate such honest content, do like and subscribe for more future content. Tripping on my words here. But anyways, guys, thank you so much again for your attention, and see you in the next video.